Thanks. This is a big stage. It's great to be here. I'm glad they gave that intro to provide some context for why I'm here. Outside of my day job, I have a real passion for philanthropy and for figuring out ways to approach cause-related activity in an innovative way. And a friend of mine who's involved with the YPO and specifically with the sub-community within YPO that focuses on social impact and social entrepreneurship asked me to talk a little bit about how kind of this bold new era of crowdfunding that we're all seeing emerge and interacts with businesses and foundations and the overall integrated agenda of social impact. So, you know, when we talk about crowdfunding, I think crowdfunding is a word that's being used a lot now, but it encompasses a lot of things. Obviously, people are familiar with sort of the crowdfunding model where people are raising money for their personal projects or to seed a company or things like that you see on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. There's even crowdfunding for you know, credit finance on great platforms like Lending Club and in innovative ways of approaching microequity even. A few years ago when we started CrowdRise, what we wanted to address specifically was how to use crowdfunding to focus on charitable impact. And we built it as a platform with a very specific idea, which was to generate leverage off of the power of the crowd, off of the power of many, many people coming together with small capacity to make a big impact. And for us, leverage works on a lot of levels. You can leverage an individual's personal social network, you can leverage a company's customer base, you can leverage a foundation's major grant dollars, and that's sort of I think our day-to-day work is we look to find hidden leverage opportunities in contexts where people don't usually see how assets can be used in a creative way to unlock the power of crowdfunding. And we're generating very successfully new corridors of financial support for nonprofits and charities at very radical cost efficiency, which I think is important. When people talk about what's the real opportunity of crowdfunding, it is an online mode of fundraising, and we all know organizational development costs. The dirty secret is that most organizations spend 25 cents of every dollar they raise to raise the money. We see part of the opportunity of crowdfunding is that we can bring new funding in at costs, you know, more like under 8%. So we're talking a pretty radical cost efficiency. As he mentioned, CrowdRise has raised over $100 million for tens of thousands of nonprofit organizations in its first 3 years, and we're expecting to double that just in 2014 alone. So we're seeing very substantial aggregation of under $100 donations adding up to very significant amounts. You know, what we look at ourselves as is a clearinghouse for good ideas on how to raise money. If you go to CrowdRise, you can see lots of different modalities. You can click into templates for all kinds of ways of raising money. But I thought I'd show you, to us, what sort of leverage, what does leverage look like in a crowdfunding sense. I'm just going to spin you through a couple things, you know, individuals. Here's a perfect example of a kid. He's probably got $10 of personal financial capacity, but turning his Kilimanjaro climb into a fundraiser, he raised thousands of dollars here. This one is, I am actually having a hard time seeing it. Oh, this was another kid with a lemonade stand. You know, $26,000 raised by turning her lemonade stand into an online enterprise. These people just said, we're going to eat pancakes. We're not going to run a marathon. We're going to eat pancakes until we get sick. And they got their friends to actually sponsor them and raise 5,000 bucks. We thought that was pretty innovative use of your person. This one is one of my personal favorites. These guys promised to go to the concert of a band that they hate sober. So they did Creed sober and had a very successful fundraiser off of it. So now they're doing the Backstreet Boys sober, and their friends have already contributed 4,400 bucks in honor of in that heroic effort. These guys did push-ups for charity and raised nearly $300,000. This is Sophia Bush, who a lot of you know is a great actress. She has given up her birthday, used your birthday, and raised $63,000. We're seeing people do turn their weddings. We have an online wedding registry where people can turn their wedding into a fundraiser, and we're seeing people regularly raise 5 figures. So this is people leveraging personal networks, leveraging their creativity, and taking either activities or aspects of their life that people wouldn't traditionally think of as a vector for fundraising and turning it into really substantial impact. But I think that today what I thought would be more appropriate to focus on is to look at the context of how crowdfunding can play specifically into corporate social responsibility agendas and major foundation scenarios, since I know a lot of you are engaged in both of those. Our view of those things is that a dollar should never be a dollar. It should never really go out the door in a one-to-one basis. We think there's always a multiplier effect available for CSR money, and even for major grant philanthropy. The most traditional mechanism of leverage in the corporate world, generally speaking, is the match campaign. And in that scenario specifically, we think there's a lot of turbocharging capacity to crowdfunding. This was the Red Cross got a $500,000 match grant from a Japanese-American family. They came to us and said, do you think we could, through a crowdfunding campaign, meet 10 to 15% of the match online? And we actually ended up raising $300,000 of the $500,000 match online in under $100 donations in less than 2 weeks. So they were astonished to find that they could match a major grant donation that fast through an online campaign. I like this one better. United Airlines saw that we had done that and came to us and said, look, we have a default mechanism for donating $50,000 whenever there's a big disaster, but could we match it at least? And we said, we think you can do much better than that. We drilled into it with United and came up with a program by where they set a metric for a number of miles awards that they would give for a $50 or $100 donation. And for Sandy relief, they raised nearly $1 million in 15 days just by leveraging their miles awards for the campaign. And then when the Philippine disaster came along, they raised, what is that, almost $1.7 million. This is a company that used to give $50,000 away to the Red Cross or AmeriCares or organizations like that. That was their default CSR response to disaster relief, was $50,000. They're now matching their $50,000 like within an afternoon through their customer base, and then by implementing the Miles Award, which is something they like to do anyway, they've pushed their impact upwards of $1.7 million. So that's the kind of leverage that we like to see, figuring out how to take a corporate asset that's laying dormant and activate it. We went, further from there into an idea that we really like, which is called the Challenge Campaign. Patagonia used to have this program where they'd give away $5,000 to one environmental organization. We said, look, let us use the $5,000 as a prize and we'll get 9 different environmental organizations to compete from it. And Patagonia went from donating $5,000 to raising, nearly over $40,000 in pursuit of the 9. So we got 9-to-1 leverage there for an amount of money that they had been planning to grant away 1-to-1, and we started to grow it from there. Now we've done a lot of challenge campaigns. The Skoll Foundation raised over $2 million in a social entrepreneurship campaign just by putting up a $100,000 grant prize in 3 tiers. About 100 organizations competed and raised a multiple of, I think it was over 15 times the prize money. The Skoll Foundation had never gotten that kind of leverage off of a grant before. This one, this is Under Armour, I believe. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard, no, I'm sorry, this is Newman's Own. Newman's Own was very focused on veterans support, and they put up a $75,000 prize and got a nearly 10 times multiple in terms of the money raised by the organizations chasing for that prize. And we're just seeing this over and over again. We're seeing Martha Stewart got nearly 13-to-1 leverage on the CSR budget that they had allocated for homelessness and hunger organizations. This was another Skoll challenge where $100,000 turned into $1.2 million. This was a third Skoll challenge. Skoll Foundation did 3 with us, putting up $100,000 in grant money that leveraged 10 or 15 times through the organizations competing for it. That one we've already seen. And then, and I think that we're very excited by this idea because the companies that we work with and the foundations as well, and we're now in talks with Bloomberg Foundation, Ford Foundation, the Clinton Foundation, a number of others, are realizing that alongside their grant money, what they really want to deliver also is capacity building support to the organizations that they support. Online fundraising and crowdfunding is obviously something that a lot of organizations want to start to figure out the science and art of. And so these foundations are loving the idea that they're getting a kind of leverage off their major grant donations that they've never seen before, but alongside of it, the organizations that are getting supported are also getting this capacity building exercise by working with us on figuring out the game theory in and around a successful grassroots campaign. On a corporate level, we're seeing the same kind of enthusiasm, wild enthusiasm for the fact that a CSR dollar is going much further in terms of the impact that it's generating, but also that they're getting to do something that's core to their business, like market their frequent flyer miles or reach out to the customer base and get them engaged in a cause-related relationship as opposed to just a consumer relationship. So I think that I'll wrap it up and leave a little bit of time for questions just by saying I think the thing that we're very excited about is within the corporate and the foundation context, which I think relates to this crowd in particular, is that as with personal financial capacity, we think that the real potency in crowdfunding is that it can provide this substantial multiplier on the limitations of direct financial support. It can take a CSR budget and really turbocharge it. And do much better than sort of pass the money along. It can actually grow a community around that leverage, and that's exciting to us. That's what I wanted to share. So, but I'm happy to take any questions.
First of all, congratulations and thanks for sharing. This is really, really cool. My question is, how are you driving the traffic to all these causes? How does the word go out? Because you need the donators to come.
Sure. It can be different. In the case of, say, our United Airlines campaigns, obviously they have a very big customer base, a very big mailing list. You have an event like the Philippines disaster, the whole world is paying attention anyway, and with the right language, we think the way you communicate and things like that is important, but obviously the core driver on those campaigns was simply their customer mailing list and their customer email list. In other cases, say a company puts up a challenge campaign, the wonderful thing that happens is inevitably the driver is the hundreds of organizations that will raise money and compete for the prize money that they've put up. So in the case of, say, Under Armour put up the $75,000 in prize money, but 100 to 150 organizations that competed for the prize money are using that as the sort of hinge around which they can email their supporters and their lists, and so the company is getting a lot of exposure through the network effect of the many hundreds of organizations that are competing for its prize money.
Thank you for your efforts. My name is Harjiv Kandhari from YPO Dubai. My question for you is that how can you use your crowdfunding solution for international charities? So my charity, for example, my CSR foundation is based in the UK. Do you have money laundering concerns or anything of that that would allow us to use it?
It's a good question. We're right in the middle of confronting that right now. This platform is barely 3 years old, and we did begin. Obviously, we want it to be extremely airtight in terms of credibility and fraud protection, all those things. So at the moment, the guiding parameters are the IRS GuideStar database. So IRS-approved U.S. charities are the only things that can activate a fundraiser on the site. We do have many international organizations that have raised money through CrowdRise, but they've done it through a US 501c3 affiliate or something like that. But we're figuring out right now which international contexts would be most ripe for expanding into, because we've had lots and lots of inquiry about replicating this in the UK, in India, in China, lots of places. So I think we'll get there.
Thank you.
Sorry, I can't see too well. Is there anyone coming to the mic?
Sorry, my first question got answered. First of all, Edward Norton, everybody. Come on. I love you. Have you had an instance where you had to say no to allowing a charity on the site because you felt the cause was violent or bigoted or in any way didn't feel right? And how did you handle that?
It's a good question. Like I said, we decided not to adjudicate ourselves. We decided to let the IRS, qualification process be our parameter. If the IRS has approved an organization as a 501c3 organization and they're listed in the GuideStar database and everything, that's what activates a fundraiser on our site. Obviously, lots of people have divergent views on lots of different subjects, but our hope is that whatever the IRS parameters, that people won't, people can't invent a fake charity out of whole cloth because it has to be an IRS approved charity to activate a donate button on our site, and thus far we haven't had any, we really haven't had any major problems.
Hi, my name is Kim, and it's not as much a question as is a comment to the crowd. It was actually my son, by coincidence, who you had up, who did the climb from Mount Kilimanjaro.
Am I right in saying that his personal financial capacity was probably somewhat less than what he succeeded in raising?
He did donate his allowance for a few months, but no, he did the training, and he was blown away with $8,500. But why I wanted to comment was just to say to the audience, it is so incredibly easy. I am not a tech-savvy mom. My kids are not gamers or into technology the way that many of their peers are. And Finn figured it out as a 10-year-old. And he said, Mom, I want to do the climb and I want to raise $10,000. And I said, oh, sweetie, yikes, that's a lot. What if we raise $1,000? And I slept on it, and I thought, I can't believe I just told my son to lower his expectations and try to do less. And I was so embarrassed, and I said to my husband, that's one of my worst parenting moments, to do that to him. So I woke up the next day and I said, okay, let's figure this out, because if you want to raise $10,000 as a 10-year-old sitting in Tanzania and Africa with not a lot of technology and resources here, we need to learn how to do it. So 10-year-old went on and did it and raised $8,500. So it's a phenomenal program. Thank you for organizing
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
I think it speaks to something that, her particular experience speaks to something that I think a lot of companies know intuitively, no matter what their businesses are, which is that the next generation, this generation of young people coming along who are intrinsically network conversant and internet conversant are by definition going to relate to cause in a different way than our parents did and even than we have. They are not going to look at personal financial capacity as the only way that they can make the world into what they want it to be. And they are going to understand that their network conversancy gives them a capacity beyond their own thing, and they're going to relate to it more proactively. They're not going to wait for a direct mailing from the Nature Conservancy to decide that that's the cause they want to support. They're going to figure it out and be more proactive. So I think that one of the things we're also interested in working on with our corporate partners is how that CSR relationship maybe inverts to where companies say, hey, look, we're not going to tell you what cause to care about, bring us evidence of the positive social impact you're creating, and we'll you know, reward it somehow. That's also a very interesting idea, I think, about the inversion of what's been traditionally a CSR mode. Let me take one last question, because you got to get to Magic Johnson.
From San Diego. I think that's a wonderful idea, great concept. My concern when I went on Facebook to like you is it requested all my contacts. And even though I have no problem with my personal contact, I'm not sure I'm at liberty to disclose all the rest of my contacts.
As someone who's not a Facebook user, I can't, I'm not sure about that. Are you saying that you had that hang up between CrowdRise and Facebook, or just on Facebook?
On CrowdRise on Facebook. You can like CrowdRise on Facebook.
I see.
And then when you press yes, I want to join, it asks that you are aware that you're releasing all your contacts.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll look into that. We definitely, I'm a big believer that you should be able to control your privacy protocols, obviously. That's something I uniquely care about. Here's what I'm doing right now, and here's where I am. That could be problematic. I think let me just close by saying that I have friends who are involved in YPO, and it's obviously a community of people with a disproportionate capacity to have positive social impact through the enterprises you're engaged in. And I think it's a very interesting time that's emerging in terms of the new ideas about how people can stay true to the core of what their business is, and yet convert it, leverage it into positive impact. And if there's anyone within the YPO community that wants to dig into this deeper with us, we're available all the time. We have a fantastic team, and we're very happy to work with any of you and any of your companies to think about where we might find some of this hidden leverage. Thanks a lot for the time.